Hello everyone and welcome to Katharine's Creatures. This is a series where I get to talk a little bit about and touch base upon various mythological beast beings and the like pulled from lore worldwide. And I always like to preface by saying I'm not a linguist, so if I mispronounce anything, I do apologize in advance. I do try my best. Now, today I wanted to talk about the Kikimora, and this may be a recognizable name for anybody who are the Witcher fans, but the Kikimora is actually a legendary creature that is essentially some sort of female house spirit that comes from Slavic myth. And in many cases, they serve as sort of a juxtaposition of some of their male entities, including the Domovoi, but I'll get more into that at a later date. Now, the Kikimora in the myths could be good or bad, and it really depends on the behavior of the homeowner, oftentimes. And though more recently they kind of started to deviate and create two different versions and variations of the Kikimora, one being a little more forest-dwelling and the other being a swamp-based spirit. Now, the etymology of the name Kikimora, some people believe goes back to a Proto-Slavic word mora, or even the Proto-Germanic word moron, and those words kind of loosely translate as nightmare. Now, in Polish folklore, in particular, a mora is a soul of the living that leaves the body during the night to wander. And during those times, they can be seen as wisps of straw or hair or even moss floating through the night sky. Now, by the time the 18th to 13th century started to occur, at that time, the Slavic paganism was kind of combating the Christianity that was taking hold, and like Christianity did for many other cultures, started to demonize and villainize a lot of the creatures from the original myths and lore and belief systems. So by that time, the Kikimora started to be described as more of a foul entity. For instance, the descriptions at that point were of a hairy entity with a snout of a dog, or more of a goat-like entity. Though even if you look at the myths, the Kikimora, depending on the region and time and specific story, could take either body parts of various animals or even look like various animals' body and or face of those creatures, and it didn't have to be restricted to a goat or dog-like fusion. Now, some of the earlier Kikimora in different kind of stories, they could be described as anything from a beautiful woman to a beautiful girl to an older woman, and had nothing to do with a beast fusion. But they could even actually take some kind of form reminiscent of a deceased family member. Of course, if you know your family member is no longer there, it would probably alert you that there's something else going on, and it may be a Kikimora. Now, going back to the fact that this concept entity started taking on two forms, there was the swamp variety that started to occur, and the swamp variety was more often than not described as being some kind of small, ugly, hunchbacked, often thin, scruffy old woman with a pointed nose and disheveled hair. And in those circumstances, they often wore clothes that were covered with moss and or grass, and that variety was known to frighten people off the roads, potentially drown them in various in the swamps, and or kidnap children. So again, not a nice variation. Now, going back to the concept of the Polish mora, those were known to be able to have the ability to enter rooms through things like keyholes, whereupon they would sit on the chest of their victims and strangle them. Again, not very nice. And in those circumstances, some of the ways to repel the Kikimora was to actually turn to look at the window, change the position of your pillow, or even make the sign of a cross. So relatively easy things to do to just get the Kikimora, or the Mora in this case, out and away. Now, by the 19th century, the Moras were actually repelled by putting an upside down broom, or kept away I should say, by putting an upside down broom behind the door. I'm blending the words together. Broom behind the door, and that would prevent them from entering your space. So that was just a precautionary thing to do. Now, going back to the fact that there are two kinds of Kikimora, again, the forest-dwelling variety and the swamp variety. The forest-dwelling variety, well, both of them are all female. So the forest-dwelling variety was known to be the counterparts of the Domovoy entities, while the swamp ones were supposed to be married to and be the counterparts to the Lishi. And again, these all are different kind of Slavic male entities that counterbalance the Kikimora, a female Slavic entity. And one of the ways you can kind of notice and identify a swamp variety also is the fact that they would leave wet footprints wherever they went. So that would be some kind of telltale sign that it may not be a person, but it may be a Kikimora wandering around. Now, I've talked a lot about the negatives aspects of Kikimora, but as I said way in the beginning, they could also do some good too. And in that sense of being a household spirit, if the Kikimora lived and chose to live on the land that you own, and they like to, they were known to take care and tend to the chickens and even do some of the household work and chores during the night while the people slept in the lands and the territories and the properties that they chose to live upon. So they could actually do some good as well. If you have any questions about this or anything else, post them in the comments below or reach out to me on any of my social media. And until next time, everyone, skål.